Welcome all. I'm joined today by Arsineh Arakel, a member of the Board of Directors for the Center for Truth and Justice. So Arsineh, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
To start off, the Center for Truth and Justice is a non-profit. It's a group of lawyers, mostly young, also mostly female, who are collecting testimonies from the 2020 Karabakh War and other human rights violations in the context of that war. Can you tell us a bit about the center and what exactly its mission is?
The center is comprised of 25 attorneys, largely a group of women, but we also have men. And we are passionate diasporan Armenians that are dedicated to preserving testimonies from the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh Artsakh war. These testimonies capture the stories of victims who were displaced, discriminated, experienced war crimes, repatriated POWs, or the families of the POWs who are still in captivity. Our mission is to preserve their testimonies, hear their stories, and make sure we can have a living memorial where these stories are in a gallery and can be visited by politicians, academicians, human rights activists, and advocates, where they will be able to learn, reflect, educate, and have a sense of compassion. And through this compassion, ultimately, you're seeking to preserve the truth and seek justice.
And can you tell us a bit about the inception of the Center for Truth and Justice? So how exactly did you and your team, your colleagues, come to the conclusion that there was a need for this?
It was as a result of the 2020 war. During the war, we witnessed heinous crimes. It wasn't a normal war. The atrocities were disabling. And as a professional and a group of professionals, we all individually felt compelled to utilize our skill set in some way to provide a voice to these victims, which is in our natural profession. That's what we do. After the war ended, we came together almost just driven by this energy bringing us together to serve this goal. So when we found each other, it was through the founders that the Center for Truth and Justice was established. I joined for the same purpose that the others joined, which was how can I individually contribute to lifting and rising the voices of these victims and seeking justice. We would have meetings and formed teams. So the teams here, the teams of attorneys, are paired with law students, both in Armenia and in Artsakh. These law students are trained on how to use international standards of evidence and go into the field to gather testimonial evidence from the war victims. They gain a tremendous amount of experience, and these tools that we teach and provide are transferable skills that can be utilized outside of these heinous war crimes that were committed in 2020 to war crimes and testimonial gathering of those war crimes across the world.
And the Center for Truth and Justice has also been doing work on Capitol Hill in DC. 2 white papers were submitted, which lay out many human rights violations committed by Azerbaijan, and the evidence was collected by the Center for Truth and Justice. The center has asked Congress for hearings, for sanctions, and for more action regarding the Armenian POWs issue. Can you tell us about the work the center does with regards to Congress and US politics?
since our inception, which is nearing about a year now, our focus has primarily been education on human rights violations, education in the field with law students. And now that we have gathered the evidence, we are providing that evidence in the form of the white papers you just mentioned to Congress to educate them on the violations of international law and human rights law. And providing them that evidence, we're seeking, as you mentioned, hearings and sanctions. This is the first of its kind type of white paper requesting these measures and actions and demanding that Congress and other governmental bodies who are concerned for these gross violations to take action immediately, repatriate our POWs, as well as the ones who have been hidden and concealed by Azerbaijan.
And how did you and your colleagues find this team of young, talented Armenian professionals? And furthermore, can you tell us a bit more about the team? I know, for example, there is a US-based team and an Armenia-based team. So actually the team is kind of split in the world.
Upon formation, the co-founders started reaching out, and those who were interested in providing volunteer time to this non-governmental organization for the purposes and its mission started joining a board. And believe it or not, it's a fantastic group of individuals, talented, and have put in hundreds of hours over the course of this year. We formed a wonderful relationship with the law schools in Armenia. We work with and have recruited students from the Yerevan State University, the Russian Armenian University, American Armenian University, and we are also working with UFAR, the French University in Armenia. In Artsakh, we are working with the Artsakh University as well. So with the students from these law schools, we have formed great bonds and relationships as we mentor them and teach them and show them that the diaspora, though we may be thousands of miles away, we're not all that far. And we're right there with them in support to teach them the skills necessary to collect the testimonial evidence.
And can you tell us a bit about the process of gathering testimonial evidence? How do you find individuals? How does it actually work? Can you explain to our watchers, please?
Unfortunately, it doesn't take much to find a victim. A substantial, significant portion of the residents and indigenous Armenians of Artsakh were displaced. Some were internally displaced. Some sought refuge in Armenia. So you only need to walk a few steps, turn to the right, and the individual you're speaking to has been a victim of being displaced, discriminated, a war crime, a drone, damaging their home, their farm, maybe their relative, or having a relative that repatriated and is able to provide direct testimony of what Azerbaijan has done to them, or their relative is still missing or allegedly disappeared, but in Azerbaijan's custody, as our videos have shown and corroborated by the relatives.
And the database, the catalog almost, the database is, you mentioned, accessible to academics, to lawyers, to human rights groups. Is it accessible to the public? And if not, is that being done purely for ethical reasons? Because, you know, a lot of these testimonies and evidence may be highly graphic, may be highly personal or private. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Absolutely. As attorneys, we are all too familiar with the privacy and confidentiality aspects of dealing with clients. we have their confidence and we ensure we keep that confidence. Their names are typically never used unless they so wish to disclose that to the public themselves. So we do not refer to them by name. They have a specific code, and the database, which is secure, is not accessible to the public for the same reason. But we do work with different institutions and legal bodies. And should those law firms or attorneys and institutions want access to this information for serving the purpose for which it was created, they can contact us, and we will surely start the process to determine if we will build a working relationship and how to provide secure access to that information to serve the goal and seek justice.
And obviously you and your team, is working with these testimonies and this evidence. As you mentioned, a lot of this is very personal, very private. Must have been quite a moving experience for you and your colleagues as well. Yes,
we are human, and human suffering is not easy to see and hear. It is challenging, tolling, but what drives us is the transfer of that emotion into action, because it is our action that allows us to fuel moving forward. And by moving forward, inch at a time, you see the steps towards justice.
Mm-hmm. And finally, what are the future plans of the Center for Truth and Justice? Can you tell us a bit about any future steps, and how can people help? How can people get involved?
The future is to continue the testimonial gathering, to house this in a gallery. And in this gallery, academicians and human rights activists, all from across the world, Armenian or non-Armenian alike, can come, learn, educate, and make change. Those who want to get involved, whether it be an interpreter, whether it be a law student who is seeking to make an impact and gather testimonies, or human rights activists or politicians and different institutions that see the need to take this and bring our POWs home, seek restitution, and so on and so forth, can reach out to us, and we will surely take it to the next step.
Okay, well, Arsineh, thank you very much for your time, and we really appreciate the work the Center is doing.
Thank you so much, Emilio.
And thank you for joining us on CivilNet.